What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to more C4, your home for all things Philadelphia Eagles this offseason and beyond. This is an official relaunch of our secondary channel. My name is C4. I'm a predominantly Madden YouTuber that loves talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, so I made this little side channel here as my place to do whatever the hell I want, whenever I want, talking about the Eagles. Unfortunately, that whenever I want has been few and far between. Last year was just absolutely crazy on the main channel with Madden and college football content. Now, I was able to get back into things for the Eagles Super Bowl run and do my reactions after every single game, including Super Bowl reaction, but I just got that itch of trying to make another go here, making an Eagles secondary channel. It's the dream. My dream world as a content creator is to have a successful Madden college football video game channel, which, depends how you define success, but we're in a good spot. And then to have another place where whenever I want, anything interesting pops up, I can talk about the Eagles and have a great community over here. And we're going to relaunch it here. So if you click this video from your sub box, I very much appreciate you sticking with the channel. And if it is your first time stopping by, get ready. We have a lot of content planned over the coming months. Today, we're going to start with the reaction to the Eagles hiring Kevin Patullo to replace Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I have a little bit of a spicy take on this one, which we will get to. I also plan on doing Eagles mock draft content, Eagles draft content, breaking down players I think would be great fits for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to react to draft experts' mock drafts and who they have taken the Eagles, like Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper. People have been hounding me on X. C4, when are we getting your Eagles dream offseason video that I do every single year where I talk about how I would handle free agency and my dream mock draft? That will not be going on the main channel, be coming over here on the secondary channel as we're getting ready to load up on some content here. We're going to have a lot of fun. And I think the plan is, I got to get monetized again, because once you get monetized, you can live stream. The dream is when I am home. I'm not always home for the Eagles games, but when I am, I'd love to do some live stream watch-alongs for Eagles games next season as well. So if you're your first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button and stick around. So first things first, Kevin Patullo, offensive coordinator, huh? He was the Eagles passing game coordinator. He joined a couple years ago, back when we hired Nick Sirianni from the Colts. So essentially, he's Nick Sirianni's buddy, Nick Sirianni's best friend on the coach staff. This hire screams to me, especially with the lack of external search, and it's late in the process, so a lot of the top names that Philly may even would want to bring in for an interview for the OC job probably were hired already. This screams to me like Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie agreed, let's give Nick a little bit more power back over this team. Because after last year's debacle with Brian Johnson and the entirety of the defensive coordinator, we'll just call it the mess with all those names, all those guys, and really it started with Gannon taking forever and then missing out on Vic Fangio. It was a shit show. Nick Sirianni absolutely botched the hiring process in replacing Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, and it felt like Nick Sirianni coming into this year was on the hot seat. Howie Roseman in particular is like, I'm going to handle the coaching hires. Don't worry about it. It's not a strength. It's not a skill set that you possess. Let me go. I'll get Vic. I'll secure Vic. We'll go get Kellen Moore, who has had some success in the league, especially as a play caller. We're going to make sure that you're still not the play caller, Nick Sirianni, and let's rock and roll. And then we found success again. Great. Awesome. Good news is Vic's not going anywhere. We got ourselves our own Steve Spagnuolo, which is an absolute win for the Philadelphia Eagles. The bad news is that we, for the most part of the last couple of years, have been a head coach factory for our offensive coordinators. If we ever get in a good offensive coordinator, they're going to go on to become a head coach, which I think would be valuable for Philadelphia to look outside the building, because that is the reputation this has. You might be able to get someone sneaky good. You might be able to get a Josh McCown. That would have been my dream hire, the Vikings quarterback coach, former Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Remember the Seahawks playoff game after Clowney dirty hit on Wentz? McCown came in on like a torn knee and battled valiantly. I'll never forget that. I would love to see him come back. There were reports out of Minnesota that he would only leave the quarterback coaching job for a head coach opportunity, which just straight up jumping being an offensive coordinator in that process is bizarre to me, but is what it is. I mean, Minnesota probably has the best coach in football with no Super Bowl rings. I think that could go into discussion. Kevin O'Connell is outstanding. That's why he got Coach of the Year. So, not going outside the building, this whole thing screams like, all right, Nick, you got the Super Bowl. You proved us wrong. We're sorry for pretty much throwing you under the bus for the terrible hires a year ago. you can pick the OC, Nick, and I feel like that's the vibes that goes on with this hire, especially how quickly it happened with no interview process. So Patullo is the passing game coordinator. Mixed bag with that, because sometimes our passing game looks very, very good. Guys get open, some interesting play calls. Also feels like there's just as many guys that are running terrible routes, and our pass game sucks. Let's just run the ball with Saquon. Our pass game's frustrating. Just run the ball with Saquon. So it's not like this is some, Jeff Stoutland-esque staff member that we have where it's like, oh yeah, finally he gets the job that he deserves. And let's be honest, Stoutland absolutely doesn't want that job. He just wants to be the run game coordinator and O-line coach. But we give it to a guy whose job and job performance has been a mixed bag over the last couple years. So that's kind of not the best feeling. It's not a slam dunk hire. But in comparison, I felt like Brian Johnson was a slam dunk hire. Internally, developed the hell out of Jalen Hurts, we assume, buddies with Jalen Hurts. Was an offensive coordinator at the University of Florida when I watched. Obviously, that's my team, the Gators. He was pretty damn good. He was one of the hot young names, and I felt really, really good about that OC hire. But the similarity between him and Patullo is no NFL play calling experience. With Nick Sirianni losing the ability to call offense, there's always going to be a lot of doubt around Philadelphia giving the reins to this offense, to a Super Bowl overpowered offense, to a guy with zero play calling experience. We've been burned in years past. That's probably my biggest concern with this. There's an element of the mystery box. There's a mystery box of Kevin Patullo. And do we go with the historical result from those mystery boxes of the Eagles of getting no OC with play calling experience sucking? But it's a mystery box. It could open up, and Patullo could be the next, dominates next year. Excellent play caller, gets the offense humming, and becomes a head coach. There is a certain mystery, even though the track record does not favor the Philadelphia Eagles. The positive would be, he has familiarity with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has had 5 different play callers in his time here in Philadelphia. A lot of times when you have that kind of experience going on in the coaching staff, your quarterback sucks. That can kill and stunt a lot of growth and development. We look across the league, a lot of bad teams with young quarterbacks that have that revolving door, they can just never figure it out. That is an absolute credit to Jalen Hurts, and keeping someone in the building is going to be helpful. From all accounts, during a Super Bowl interview, during that whole week, it gave off the vibes like Patullo is going to run stylistically very similar to what we saw with Kellen Moore. Worked hand in hand with Kellen Moore developing the offense last year. I assume he's just going to try to keep that thing going without rocking the boat too much. He also is familiar with Jalen Hurts. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. I think the big name, the big fish that a lot of people wanted as the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles is Mike McCarthy. Right? And all the reports are Mike McCarthy wants to sit a year off and then come back next year, hopefully for a head coaching job. Maybe would have to settle for an OC job. The con in that is McCarthy has A, no familiarity with Jalen Hurts, where Patullo would get an advantage there. B, Mike McCarthy and some of these other guys that would find the Eagles appealing because it's like a one-stop shop. You come in, you're good, you're getting a next job. They might just view it as that's a leaping point. I'm going to hop here for a year and then I'm going to go. And with Mike McCarthy, he's probably going to come here and want to get his shit in. He's going to want to run his greatest hits that he's been running in Dallas and running in Green Bay. And maybe that and his offense and his scheme wouldn't mesh well with Jalen Hurts. Wouldn't mesh well with how Jeff Stoutland wants to run game to good. Wouldn't mesh well with our wide receivers. So there's that unknown of getting a really good big name OC in that wants to run their shit. And sometimes they won't have what I think is what was the biggest redeeming quality of Kellen Moore, which is Kellen Moore came here with a scheme from his time in Dallas and LA, and then we were 2-2. And then he kind of revamped that scheme around the strengths and weaknesses of the offense, and we got it rolling. That is probably the best thing that Kellen Moore did last year. That versatility, that ability to adapt. Would we get that from a big Mike McCarthy type hire that wants to just use his scheme and propel himself to a future head coaching job? So I think from that standpoint, there's a little bit of optimism around the familiarity with Kevin Patullo. However, I kind of go into this little post that I made. This is, in recent memory, the offensive coordinators for the Philadelphia Eagles. Every time we've hired externally, someone from outside the building, it's worked out. We got Pat Shurmur during the Chip Kelly years. He was solid. Again, it's one of those things where Chip Kelly was calling the plays on offense, but as an offensive coordinator, he was solid, and he went on to get a head coaching job as the New York Giants head coach. Didn't work out there, but anytime your coordinator goes on to become a head coach, that's a success. Then we got Frank Reich from the Super Bowl year. Obviously, things didn't work out there, again, once he left the building, but he was successful enough, helped us win a Super Bowl, got a head coaching job with the Colts. Then you have Shane Steichen. The exact same scenario. Successful, went to a Super Bowl, didn't win, but that was probably the best this offense has looked over the last 5 years, and got a head coaching job. Then we got Kellen Moore. We brought him in on like a 1-year rental. He cashed out with the Super Bowl, is going to become a new head coach. The internal hires for the Philadelphia Eagles. These are guys that have got promoted from our coaching staff. No external interviews. We go with these guys. We got Mike Groh, who replaced Frank Reich. He was horrific. Then he got fired. Press Taylor, I put him up there because that year Doug Peterson didn't go with an offensive coordinator. Doug Peterson was the OC in a way. But if you had to look at someone on the staff that was picking up the slack, it would be the highest in command. It was Press Taylor. And Press Taylor ended up getting Doug Peterson fired, not only here in Philadelphia, but in Jacksonville. That is how bad he is. And then our last internal hire was Brian Johnson, who at the time I thought that was a great hire. Maybe a little bit of Florida Gator bias in there. But by all accounts, you were optimistic that was maybe the internal hire that could break the curse for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it just didn't work out. He was completely over his head as far as a play caller is concerned, and it was absolutely brutal. So now we are adding Kevin Patullo to the mix here to see if he can break the curse of internal hires. I don't want this to be overtly negative, because honestly, looking outside the building, look at the other names, unless there was just someone in college football that was itching to make the jump to the NFL, and we just didn't knock on the right door there. There wasn't a whole lot out there for Philadelphia to find that big slam dunk offensive coordinator, especially if Josh McCown wasn't leaving Minnesota. The big name like Mike McCarthy was firmly sit on not coaching again. What do we bring back Doug Peterson as like an OC? Just so many potential names. Like Frank Reich is another one. I think you could look at bringing Frank Reich maybe in as a senior advisor. That's something Philadelphia has historically did. Marty Morningweg was our OC in the Andy Reid years. I believe he was a senior assistant during the Doug years. We had Vic Fangio was a senior assistant during the Murr from Impractical Jokers year, the Jonathan Gannon years. And then we eventually brought him in. So it is something that the Eagles value, and I could see maybe a Frank Reich role like that, especially with inexperienced Kevin Patullo. But Frank Reich wasn't a particularly good play caller. His play calling stuck in Indy. His play calling stunk in Carolina. I think it's just history does not look kindly upon this hiring, but there's also nothing really to go off of to assume that he's going to be bad. It's just history's not in his favor, but for him individually, he's his own person. He's his own coach. Maybe he's an awesome play caller. So I don't want to firmly commit one way or another. I just think, you got to bring up the history and highlight that it hasn't been the best, especially for the fact that this was such a quick hire, especially if this was a let's give Nick some power back and let him hire his buddy. If it blows up, it is a terrible process. It was terrible due process to find this offensive coordinator. We did not have a single interview outside the building. The last bit of news is we have brought in Parks Frazier as the next pass game coordinator, take over for Kevin Patullo. He's been in the NFL for 8 seasons, was most recently in Miami under Mike McDaniel. I mean, there's some wild things positively that the Dolphins offense run. That'd be cool little wrinkles to maybe sprinkle in for the Philadelphia Eagles. But I just keep coming back to this. This checks and balances, good and bad, looking at the recent offensive coordinator hires for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's pretty obvious, when it's this, the contrast. Externals are home runs. Internals have been terrible every time. We didn't even take another interview. This process was non-existent. It'll be interesting to see come October, November, where the Eagles offense is at, if we need to come back and think about this. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about Kevin Patullo being the Eagles' new offensive coordinator. Let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you're first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. I think we will be back tomorrow, if not the next day, reacting to some Philadelphia Eagles draft content. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. And that will do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, it's your boy C4 saying peace out. Love ya. Have a good one.